You'd think a secret dies with the person who keeps it, but sometimes it's the quietest one in the room who knows everything, even if that someone walks on 4 legs. When Grandma passed, the family gathered to mourn, or maybe to see what they could take, but nobody expected the cat, yes, the cat, to change everything. When Evelyn passed away, her small cottage at the edge of Willow Creek suddenly became the most discussed topic in the family group chat. She'd always been the heart of the family, soft-spoken, stubborn in her ways, and famously attached to her Maine Coon, Oliver. The old cat had been her shadow for 15 years, so loyal that even neighbors joked he knew Evelyn better than her own children. Evelyn had 2 grandchildren, Claire, a quiet woman in her late 20s who worked as a nurse, and her older brother, Mark, charming, confident, and always a little too ambitious for his own good. While Claire had spent most weekends visiting their grandmother, fixing small things around the house and helping with groceries, Mark was always too busy building his business. Still, when Evelyn passed, Mark was the first to show up. The day after the funeral, he arrived in a crisp suit, carrying a folder and that polite smile that somehow never reached his eyes. "We should handle this quickly," he said to Claire as she fed Oliver on the porch. The cat stared up at Mark, his golden eyes narrowing like he remembered something unpleasant. Claire frowned but said nothing. The will reading was scheduled for Friday. The family gathered in Evelyn's small living room. The air smelled faintly of lavender and old books. The lawyer, a gray-haired man named Mr. Watkins, unfolded the papers and began reading. "To my granddaughter Claire, who has always been there when I needed her." He paused as Mark leaned forward slightly, trying to hide his impatience. "I leave my antique ring collection and my sewing machine." Claire nodded softly, grateful even for that. "But when Watkins continued, and to my grandson Mark, I leave the remainder of my estate, including the house and all associated assets." Her breath caught. She looked up sharply, eyes meeting Mark's satisfied grin. It didn't make sense. Evelyn had always been fair, thoughtful. She used to say both grandchildren would share everything equally. Something about this felt off, but before Claire could speak, Mark clapped his hands once. "Well, that settles it," he said. "Guess we'll start moving things next week." Watkins looked uncomfortable. "There's one more note," he added, flipping to the back page. "She left a handwritten letter sealed for delivery. It's addressed to both of you." Mark waved it off. "I'll take it," but Watkins shook his head. "It's meant for both, Mr. Davis. You'll open it together." That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She sat in Evelyn's old chair, petting Oliver, who purred quietly in her lap. "You saw how fast he moved," she whispered. The cat blinked, turning his head toward the shelf near the fireplace. Evelyn's old writing desk stood there, drawer slightly ajar. Claire hesitated, then got up to look. Inside were notebooks, recipe cards, and one small brass key. It had a tag attached for "What's Right." Her heart raced. Evelyn had been many things, but vague wasn't one of them. She slipped the key into her pocket, unsure what it meant. The next morning, Mark returned with boxes. "You're still here?" he asked, stepping past her without waiting for an answer. He opened cabinets, flipped through drawers, and tossed aside anything that looked sentimental. "You can take what you want from the old stuff," he said. "The deed's mine now." Claire bit her tongue. She didn't have the energy to argue, not yet. But Oliver, sitting by the doorway, seemed unusually alert. He followed Mark from room to room, tail flicking, eyes fixed. Once, when Mark reached for Evelyn's old jewelry box, Oliver hissed a deep, sharp sound that startled both of them. Mark frowned. "What's wrong with that cat?" Claire crouched beside him, rubbing his back. "He doesn't like liars," she said softly. Mark rolled his eyes. "He's a cat, Claire. He doesn't know anything." But as the days went on, strange things started happening. One night, while Mark was sorting through papers in the study, Oliver leapt onto the desk and knocked over a folder. Papers scattered, and among them, a document Mark clearly didn't want her to see. Claire caught a glimpse before he snatched it up. "Property transfer unsigned. Don't touch my stuff," he snapped. But his voice was tense now, less confident. Claire said nothing, but the seed of doubt grew. That evening, she remembered the brass key. While Mark was out taking a call, she searched the house quietly. It didn't fit any door or drawer she knew. Then she looked toward the basement, Evelyn's private space, where she used to store family albums and old letters. Claire hadn't been down there in years. She descended the creaky stairs with Oliver following close behind. The basement was dim, lit only by a small bulb that flickered occasionally. She tried the key on the old trunk under the workbench and it clicked open. Inside were photo albums, some jewelry, and an envelope labeled "If They Ever Forget What Love Looks Like." Inside was another handwritten note, and attached to it, a small flash drive. Before she could open it, footsteps echoed upstairs. Mark's voice. She quickly closed the trunk, slipped the flash drive into her pocket, and turned off the light. Oliver darted behind her legs, tail twitching. "Claire?" Mark called. "You down there?" She climbed up calmly, heart racing. "Just getting some old things," she said. He didn't look convinced but didn't press. Later that night, she plugged the flash drive into her laptop. There were only 2 files, a scanned letter and a short video. The letter was written in Evelyn's handwriting. "If this ever reaches you, it means someone tried to take what isn't theirs. The truth isn't buried deep, it's right where Oliver sleeps." Claire's eyes darted to the couch. Oliver often slept behind it, near the loose floorboard Evelyn never fixed. She moved it aside and found a small locked box. The brass key fit perfectly. Inside was a copy of the real will, and this one, in Evelyn's unmistakable signature, left everything equally to both grandchildren. Claire sat there in shock. Mark had forged or replaced the original. But how? And why had Evelyn anticipated it? Oliver brushed against her leg, purring softly as if confirming what she already knew. When she looked out the window, she saw Mark's car headlights pulling back into the driveway. He wasn't supposed to be home yet. She hid the box and whispered to Oliver, "Guess you and I just found the truth." The cat blinked once, his golden eyes steady, as footsteps approached the door. Mark entered the house without knocking, tossing his jacket on the couch as if he already owned the place. "You're still here," he said again, voice lower this time, a hint of irritation seeping through his usual charm. Claire stood by the kitchen counter, trying to keep her hands still. The small box was hidden inside the pantry, wrapped in a grocery bag beneath a stack of towels. She'd read the letter twice more since discovering it, and every word made her pulse tighten. Evelyn knew what Mark had done. Somehow, their grandmother had seen this coming. Oliver sat on the windowsill, watching every movement in the room with that unnerving calm cats have. Mark noticed and muttered, "Creepy animal." Claire didn't answer. "I think you should move out by the weekend," he said. "There's no point hanging around." She glanced at him. "You seem in a hurry," he shrugged. "I've got plans. Gotta renovate, maybe rent the place out." Grandma would have wanted me to make something of it. The way he said me made something twist in her stomach. Evelyn would never have said that. She would have wanted them both there together. Claire took a deep breath. "Mark, when Mr. Watkins read the will, did you see it before that day?" He turned sharply. "What are you implying?" "I'm asking." He stepped closer, towering over her just slightly. "You think I forged Grandma's will? That's crazy, Claire. You always think everyone's out to get you." "Maybe you should accept that Grandma loved me more." It was the kind of line only Mark could say with a straight face. Claire didn't respond, but Oliver jumped down from the window and padded slowly toward the living room. He stopped near the couch and meowed once, sharply, then again. Claire's eyes flicked to him instinctively. Mark noticed. "What's with him?" he asked. Oliver kept pawing at the rug, right above the floorboard where the real will had been hidden. It was as if he was calling her bluff, telling her it was time. Claire exhaled. "Maybe you should sit down." Mark frowned. "Why?" She picked up her phone and opened the video file from the flash drive. Evelyn's face appeared on the screen, smiling faintly, sitting in her favorite chair with Oliver curled on her lap. "If you're watching this," she said in her warm, steady voice, then my fears were right. Mark, I love you, but greed blinds people. I saw what you tried to do before I passed. And Claire, my dear, I trust you'll do what's right. Mark froze, his jaw tightened, eyes darting to her phone like he could erase the video by staring hard enough. Where did you get that? From Grandma, Claire said quietly. The same place you thought she'd never hide anything. He laughed, but it wasn't real, more like disbelief breaking through pride. You don't have proof. She walked to the rug, pulled it aside, and lifted the floorboard. The small box sat there, still open. She took out the real will and placed it on the coffee table. This is her signature, she said. It was witnessed by Mr. Watkins himself 2 months before she died. The copy you brought him was fake. Mark didn't move for a long time. Then he said, "You're bluffing." Claire shook her head. "You could call him right now." For a few seconds, there was silence. Only Oliver's faint purring filled the air. Then Mark lunged forward, grabbing for the paper. But Oliver hissed, loud and sudden, claws flashing as he jumped between them. Mark stumbled back, startled, and his hand knocked over a candle sitting on the table. It rolled, spilling wax across the papers. Claire grabbed them quickly before they burned. "Are you insane?" she snapped. Mark's face twisted. "You're not taking this from me again." "Again," she repeated softly. He froze, realizing what he'd said. "That's right," she said, voice steady now. "You did it before, didn't you? You changed the first will. Grandma found out, and she wrote another one. You tried to erase her one last time." He opened his mouth, but the sound that came out was somewhere between anger and exhaustion. "You always had it easy," he muttered. "She loved you, not me. You never saw how she looked at me like I was a disappointment. I just wanted what I deserved." Claire didn't yell. She didn't need to. She folded the paper carefully and said, "Then maybe now you'll see what you've lost." She turned away, and that's when Oliver did something unexpected. He walked right up to Mark, circled him once, then sat down and stared at him, quiet, steady, unblinking. Mark tried to shoo him away, but the cat didn't move. For some reason, that tiny act broke something inside him more than any words could have. He dropped onto the couch and buried his face in his hands. By morning, Mr. Watkins arrived. Claire had called him after Mark finally went silent. They sat together as Watkins compared the two wills. His eyebrows lifted almost immediately. "This one," he said, pointing to the copy Claire found, "is the valid document. The other has mismatched signatures. I'll have to report this." Mark said nothing. He just stared at the window, where Oliver lay on the sill, eyes half closed in sunlight. A few weeks passed before things settled. The house remained split, as Evelyn had intended. Mark eventually moved out, his pride in pieces. Claire stayed, working her night shifts and tending the garden the way Evelyn used to. Oliver followed her everywhere, quieter now, as if his duty was done. One evening, she found an envelope taped to the fridge. It was from Mark. Inside was a small note and a check, his share of the savings Evelyn left them both. "You were right. Keep the house." "Maybe Grandma was too," she smiled faintly. "Guess even you can learn," she murmured. Oliver rubbed against her leg, letting out a soft trill, like approval. That night, she sat on the porch with him on her lap, the air calm and cool. She thought about how people often say cats don't care, that they live in their own world. But Oliver had proven them wrong. He had watched, remembered, and in his own quiet way, told the truth. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about balance. Evelyn had known her grandson's flaws, but she also believed people could find their way back even if it took losing what they wanted most. Weeks later, when Claire went through one last box of her grandmother's things, she found another letter tucked inside a cookbook. The handwriting was shaky but still familiar. "If you found this, then my little protector did his job. Be kind to Mark, even when he's wrong. Some lessons take longer to reach the heart." She folded the note carefully and placed it back. Outside, Oliver stretched, then leapt onto the arm of her chair. His fur shimmered in the setting sun, golden and soft. "Good boy," she whispered. The cat blinked, as if to say he already knew, And somewhere in the quiet of that old cottage, it felt like Evelyn was still there, not watching over them exactly, but at peace, knowing her last wish had been carried out not by lawyers or papers, but by a creature who loved her enough to tell the truth when no one else dared.